Hey guys, it's Ben from Songwriters on Process, and today I am very excited to bring to you my interview with Tracii Guns of LA Guns and Brian Fallon. Now you're probably thinking, how in the heck did you get these two guys together? Well, here's the story. I have interviewed Brian Fallon twice for my site, and I've been an LA Guns fan for over 30 years now. The first time I saw them was on the Cocked and Loaded tour in the late 80s. I was in college, so I've been an LA Guns fan for many years, and follow both of these guys on social media and notice that they always commented on each other's posts on social media. And I thought, well, maybe they know each other. Maybe they like each other's music. So I reached out to both of them. They were both very down with doing an interview and talking about their creative process. And so that's what you see here. I loved this talk. As I think I mentioned at some point, they do a lot of pointing to their heads and doing a lot of this and this and this. And to me, that just shows how cerebral both of them are when it comes to just thinking about songwriting and their creative process in general and what goes into making those songs. I have not seen people go into this much depth and honesty into their process as these guys do. And as you can see, they're big fans of each other's music. I'm very impressed with Brian's LA Guns knowledge. In fact, I think he says at some point that one of the first songs he ever learned on guitar was the LA Guns song, The Ballad of Jayne. So these guys are big fans of each other. I'm hoping for a collaboration at some point. I don't know if we're gonna get that, but this was one of my favorite interviews to do. I loved hearing these guys talk. It's about an hour long. I couldn't cut much. Everything they say is worth it. So follow along the whole way. Watch it till the end. Check out my site, Songwriters on Process. It features interviews with songwriters just about the songwriting process. I've got close to 200 on the site as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll be posting a lot more of these videos. And thanks for watching. So thank you very much again for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. And I think it's only natural to start with the question, because we've been stuck for so long in our houses. I guess, do you find that having all of this time has made you more creative? Or on the other hand, does having a large expanse of time without a deadline and without an urgency maybe make you less creative? I think you can kind of both go either way on that. So yeah, Brian, maybe start with you. So how is that process? Has having these large amounts of time, has that made you more productive or maybe less productive?
I mean, I've been pretty productive during this whole thing. Like, kind of, it's a weird thing because, like, I'm sure that Tracii will know what I'm talking about when I say that you have times in your life where you focus on writing, and then you have times where you're touring, and then you have practicing. And none of those things really want to hold hands together very nicely. So sometimes, like, you get neglectful with, like, practicing or things like that, or writing or whatever. It seems like they're hard to do at the same time. But with all this time, I've been able to kind of do both. But it's weird. I mean, but I like having time with nothing to do. I don't want to be, like, I hate going and leaving and going everywhere and being shuffled around. Like, I'm a cat. I don't want to be bothered, you know? And, like, that's the thing.
I'm with that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how it's been for me. Just, you know, kind of doing the thing. But I've been getting a lot done. That's for sure.
Yeah. But so you can write well, I guess, without a sense of urgency. Like if someone says to you, hey, Brian, I need this done in 3 months.
Yeah.
That you have the same, I guess, work ethic as if someone said, hey, Brian, I need this by tomorrow.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I used to work construction. So I take everything as like that kind of just like, yeah, all right, well, I guess we had a job to do. It will, you know, build up, okay, start from the bottom and go to the top, and that's it. And, like, I try not to get too flustered about it. I do. I become, like, very crazy in the middle of it. It gets my nerves. But with this, it's been better. I've been taking a lot of, like, serious kind of, I got all these books around me everywhere about, like, just learning weird chord shapes that I would have never cared about before. Like, why do I need to know that chord? I don't. But now I'm realizing, oh yeah, maybe I do. You know, the things that I really should have done when I was 15, like, instead of just like, I was writing songs. I didn't care about anything. I was like, G, C, D, cool. Get out of my face. I'm going to write songs. Like, I think one of the first songs I ever learned was the Ballad of Jayne. And that was like, I was like, well, this is 5 chords. I'm good. I don't need any more chords, and then now it's like, I have to try and figure the rest of it out. And it's difficult. So
It is.
Yeah. So Tracii, what do you think? Do you write well with a sense of urgency, or do you need more? Are you okay with more of maybe not that sense of urgency?
You know, now that the complete dynamic of how you live has changed, like, the original question, now I have clients, now I have people that want things written or recorded today, like, hey man, I'm sending you some money, but I need you to do this now.
Yeah.
And that happens like 2 or 3 times a week. And that's been since I've been in Denmark, since the pandemic happened. So under that kind of pressure, I'm great. Like if there's direction and urgency, my brain shuts down and everything just goes. It just goes, okay, I know what this is. Da 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 da. As far as writing original material for a new LA Guns record, I've written more material for this record than any previous 3 records.
Oh wow!
Because I had the baby in February, and then I started giving lessons, from Denmark.
Yeah.
And so I always had a guitar on. So I'd finish a lesson with somebody, and there'd be something I did during like, oh man, okay, this is something I gotta flush it out. And the way that I write songs, it's like the pure, Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen way of approaching a rock song. It starts with a riff. So if I have a riff, I have to complete the whole arrangement of music before I can put the guitar down. So in this time, I've created all this stuff, and then we'll get into more of the writing aspect a little further on. But I have, a crazy amount of arrangements written. I write with a guy named Mitch Davis, who does all the lyrics, all the melodies, and has to figure out what I'm trying to communicate. So now we've gotten to the point where, we're at September 1st, and the label called yesterday, my manager, and said, are we still turning this record in October, which is 1 month away. And everything's ready to go, except only, a quarter of the lyrics are written, and there's no final vocal takes on anything. So now it's urgent. I know they won't expect it to be turned in by October, and I don't think it's that big of a deal right now anyways, but now there's more fire, there's more, suddenly the focus has changed to other things I'm doing to, okay, Mitch, got to finish that. We got to get with Phil, and we got to put this all together. We have to finish this record. But on a creative level, this has changed my life personally in a better way. Brian's talking about, I don't like being shuffled around. I get so fucking bored on tour now. I have two kids in 2 different countries.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting on a bus, literally at least 12 hours a day when I tour, and I'm not spending time with them, and now I'm making the same living, sitting on my lazy ass, creating music, doing sessions, giving lessons, and recording, and I'm able to spend time with my kids in both countries at the same time, So this has been a take it as it comes thing. I think I was anxious maybe for 5 minutes twice during this whole period. But other than that, I think that it's really changed my life and my perspective on moving forward in the future, even when touring starts back up and, and I get, we get these calls. I'm sure Brian gets the same one. You got to take this one. It's a ton of bread. And, we'll surround it with these dates and, and then you don't have to work for blah, blah, blah. And, so, I might be a little bit more patient with my quick response to money from now on. Oh, really? Let's go. Money. And it's difficult. And I'm sure it is for you too, Brian. We're adults. We have responsibilities. But as musicians, we're children, you know. I mean, we never mature from the point where someone says, we're going to let you make an album, because that's the point in our life where somewhere subconsciously we say, I'm the person I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you kind of stay there. It's really messed up.
That's really true.
Do both of you, I guess Tracii will start, or Brian, I guess we'll start with you. Do you think it's important to create every day something, you know, just to keep that muscle, even if, you know, it's important to create, whether it's writing, lyrics, you know, music, anything. It's important to create every day just as an artist.
Well, if I'm in an interview, yeah. But if I'm in real life, no. Like,
Oh, really? Okay.
Like I should. Like, you know, I should go running every day too, but like I'm not gonna. And like, you know, yeah, I should. I'd probably be a better writer, but like, you know, I can't. Like I love writing, but I also absolutely hate writing. I hate it. It's the worst. Like I always say to my friends, I like having written, but I hate writing.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Totally.
I think some people would say maybe you don't, you know, forcing it is a bad thing, right? I mean, and I've talked to, I think it's evenly split. A lot of songwriters have told me what you've said. Hey, don't force it. Others have said, no, you got to do it every day just to keep that muscle going. So,
I have kind of a strong feeling about the obsessive compulsive creator. It seems like they're writing for a goal, you know. I've worked with people who insist that they write every day and it's their regiment.
yeah.
And to me, music in general, whether it's a song or a piece of music or a sculpture, whatever it is it's inspired. You know, there's something that inspires, usually subconsciously, a feeling in you that wants to communicate with a song or music, that when you're at the level of particularly Brian, you know, the skills are there. So the skills aren't an issue. You know what I mean? So the more time that goes by to gather inspiration, you come out and write something, then you're enjoying writing it, you know. Number two, it's really heartfelt, super authentic, and and then eventually that less quantity really improves the quality. And you know, I find that if from my end, the way that I write, if I sit down to write every day, everything sounds the same. I mean, it's just like like no matter what twist I mentally put in it, you know, I'm going to do a halftime here, I'm going to change keys here, I still am the same emotional person in that time period.
Right.
So you know, and if you beat that into the ground, I feel like the emotion gets less and less, you know, and then all of a sudden somebody wants you to do a rockabilly session for them, and you're still in this mind, and you can't get out of that mindset. You know, you're like, man, you know, I'm just not feeling this, bro. You know, like, you know, let me go put on some other records for a week, and maybe I'll feel that. But that's what I have a very strong thing. You know, I think that in our case that we didn't intend for music to be the job, you know, to be the stressful thing. I have a feeling that we got into music to relieve stress and to take us outside of this regimented adult, you know, theme that we're all supposed to adhere to. You know, it's just, it's a strange thing.
That is true.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because I've interviewed people who've been around, you know, who started writing in the 70s even. And I found as a gross generalization, Tracii, that people have been around writing since the 70s or 80s, are those who do treat it like a job. And I'm not saying one is better than the other,
Right.
but it's interesting because from your perspective, someone who's been writing, you know, for X number of years, 30, however many years.
Me and Jesus were smoking a doob, and, you know, that's how long it's been.
Yeah. But those are the people who say wait for the inspiration, wait for the muse. Those are the people who have not lasted long. At least it's the people who have said no. You've got to make it a part of your team. Those are the people who've been around long. So that's a unique perspective for me to hear from someone who's been around, who's been writing, for for that long.
Well, also I think that from my perspective, you being familiar with LA Guns music is it's a big variety of music, you know. So I'm really scared of repeating myself as to where when people have a certain amount of success, it's a safety area and they try to recapture a sound or an emotion repeatedly. And it does work really well for when you're successful and you have created a fan base. My greatest, guilty pleasure is tricking my own audience. Is like saying, hey, here it is, what do you think? Yeah. It's not like, hey man, here's Never Enough again. Here it is again. it's like, how alienated did that just make you? You know what I mean? But that says a lot about our audience because they're as big now. That audience is as big now as it ever was. It's the same. It's like virtually the same size audience. And because of, the de-evolution of style, the evolution of style, different styles, I think it's a real testament to the musical intelligence of our audience, that they get it time and time again. So maybe I'm in a unique situation where the audience is just waiting for something new, for something that they can wrap their arms around it. And not everything's a hit, but as time goes on, the band, particularly Phil and I, have really connected with that audience and been able to have great success, with changing it up a little bit here and there.
And I think that the term I often hear is, filling the well. And I think that's what you're talking about. Kind of, don't write every day, wait till the well is full. And when it's full, that's when you start to write.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Me being that type of guitarist, it never ends anyways. It's just a bizarre phenomenon, and I'm a firm believer in the spirituality of our sun and the way that chemicals work in our atmosphere and muscle memory and things like that. I really have this belief that I don't have to think about it. You know what I mean? Once it comes, then I have to think about it. Oh, look at this gift from above, right? Van Halen, I think, has said similar things, because, that's a guitar-driven rock music, thing. It comes and you appreciate it and you do something with it, which also gets messed up too, because I'll finish an album and then I'll go back and I'll listen to all my voice notes of riffs and stuff on my phone, because generally I never listen to them again. Once I make a voice note on a phone, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll go listen to that when I have to write. I never do, because I keep coming up with things, and then I'll hear something striking in the voice notes. Maybe there'll be 6 notes sitting there, 6 riffs or 6, arrangements. And those are the songs that always end up on the next record because they get lost. It's a strange thing. But enough about me.
Yeah.
Right?
So
anytime I make a voice note, it's like guaranteed I'm never going to listen to it again.
Yeah. What's up with
I don't know. All the songwriters tell me they have all these voice notes they go back to. Maybe they're just bullshitting me. I don't know. Maybe it's a big scam.
I think that a lot of the time it is, though. I think a lot of the time, a lot of the things that a lot of songwriters say is just not, it's just not true. A lot of it's hype, and they're trying to be like, oh, I've got it all figured out. You straight up do not have it figured out.
No. There's no.
No, not you. Not what you're saying. I'm talking about there's I've heard people say crazy stuff oh yeah, I just sit down and I just do it. I just force it out. And I'm like, it's not like that. It's not. There's books, volumes of books about why people go insane you know, and it's like, because you always have these things, but like, you know, kind of like what Tracii was saying, like the really, like the ideas don't stop coming, but like it does take paying attention to like what's going on and like whether it comes in at the right moment and then being able to do it. But like, it's tough. Sometimes it's a drag.
You know, like you say, ideas come, right?
Yeah.
But then that's just the seed. You have the idea. The stressful part is building around that idea.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, because, you know, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But now what?
Yeah.
You know, now what do you do? You know?
Nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
That happens countless times, I think. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like whenever I read interviews of people, like I feel like they're not, I don't know, like maybe they don't have the space, but sometimes they don't. Like I heard Paul McCartney be really honest and say, like he was doing an interview with NPR, and he said, every time I sit down to write a song, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I have to start over. Because he said in the old days, I would sit down and I had John to make me like, I have to be good because John's going to come up with something awesome and I need to beat John. But now that that's gone, it's like he sits down and he says, I forget. I don't know how I wrote Hey Jude or Let It Be. I'm an idiot. And that's what you feel like that's what I feel like every time I sit down. And yeah, I have like stacks of tricks and things like, you know, write whatever you want and then, or try to record. Did you ever do the thing where you just like press record and start playing all these riffs and just see like in 15 minutes if something good's there? Like
I have tried it years ago, you know, just because it seems like a good idea at the time, you know. And it's strange that you brought that up because I have a recurring notification reminder on my phone because I did this. I set up a Vox AC-15 and a little Marshall Blues Breaker with an Echoplex on one and a wah-wah pedal. And I just did a bunch of effects and I recorded in stereo. This is like when my son, who's 11 now, he was 2. So this is like, you know, 8 or 9 years ago. And I recorded that and I did all this stuff, you know, with a bow and all this, you know, just cool, dark sounds.
Yeah.
And it ended up just being something that's on my phone that I listen to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that was the last time that I had done that. But I think when I was younger, you know, when we had the Tascam 4-track cassette recorder, I would do that. I would like play along and then I'd get stuck on a riff that I'd like and I just leave the tape rolling. So there'd be 5 or 10 minutes before I got to something I liked. And then once I got to something I liked, I kept rolling and I would develop that. And then I would play drums on another track on a trash can. Seriously, you know, because there's no metronome, there's nothing. So I just try to jam along with myself. And then I would edit that. Then I would get rid of all that crap at the beginning. And then I would say, I have a new song. You know, that's how I would do it. But generally, you know, you get older and you start playing at different times of the day. And you know, it just, I don't have time to do that. You know?
Yeah, I don't, that never did anything. I never got anything good out of that. Like I think the place where I heard about that was, I watched that documentary on YouTube when they did the Octung Baby record, which I really like, but they were jamming, like just jamming. And all of a sudden, like they had the riff of One in the middle of like Mysterious Ways. And I was like, yo, that has never happened to me. I have never had it One in the middle of it. You know?
That's different. I have done that with the band.
Oh, okay.
You know, so if it's, you know, going back to being in a garage when I was 11 years old, you know, always had a tape recorder running because that's how I learned how to play guitar, was jamming. You know, whether it was Ted Nugent Double Live Gonzo or The Song Remains the Same, I always jam. That's how I learned how to play. It's just like making mistake after mistake after mistake, getting with my drummer and bass player, going, and then finding something. There's a really good album by a band called The Big F.
Okay.
And I think the record is just called The Big F. That entire record was written just jamming. and and they would listen back to the jams, make an arrangement out of the jam. Then John, the singer, who was the guy in the band Berlin, he was the bass player and the man.
Oh, yeah.
So he then write the lyrics over that. It's one of my favorite records. And the guitar player, this guy Mark Christian, he was in the Village People. He was the last guy in Berlin, like, you know, super 70s, crazy chicken picking nutbag guy. I'll send you a link to the record later, but that's a great example of some guys that really could do that, you know, and it's really an emotional record.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about ritual, because I'm always interested in the ritual of the writer. So Tracii, we'll start with you, I guess. Do you have any kind of rituals? Is there a time of day that you tend to get your best writing done? Maybe a place that you like to go, things you have to have with you. I mean, I'm always fascinated because I find for me as a writer that if I have certain things, if I'm in a certain chair, for whatever reason, I got the mojo. And I'm curious if that's the same way with you when you write. How important is that kind of environment, whether it's place, time of day, anything like that?
It's interesting you brought that up because I'd never thought about it before until a few months ago. Writing music in Denmark is completely different than writing music in Los Angeles.
Talk about that. Yes. Why?
Okay. So growing up, I was obsessed with Led Zeppelin. I was obsessed with, you know, Headley Grange and Bronyar and all these locations that they went to. But before I knew any of that, my mom told me that, you know, I had Led Zeppelin 2 when I was really young. And she told me that they were a British band, you know, and the only thing I knew about England is that it rained and it was foggy and that there were smokestacks. So when I was young, I always listened to Zeppelin 2 and I always pictured these guys, you know, living in this gloomy kind of atmosphere, which really attached itself to that music. It really gave me a visual to go along with that music. So always fantasizing about atmosphere to write, you know, it occurred. And the first time it occurred was I was in that band Brides of Destruction. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
Well, he left to go back to Motley Crue, and I still was on the hook to do another album. That was the deal. I rented an old Indian land up in the Malibu Mountains that was like a summer camp at one point that was defunct. So it still had this building that was like the mess hall. You know, it had a kitchen in it, staff apartments upstairs, and then a huge room with a A-frame ceiling. And I took all the band up there. Every one of those guys was addicted to something, you know, and I figured I'm going to get these guys out of the city. I'm going to bring them into the mountains. We're going to record this record, and whatever goes, goes. And the record ended up really good, but that was the most stressful writing, recording, communicating with musicians. I had Andy Johns up there, drunk out of his mind, you know, with my other band members getting into various kinds of experimentation. I mean, we're on Indian land, so the mojo and the voodoo was everywhere, you know. That's one thing. Okay, now fast forward to Denmark. I get there, and where I do write is there's two places. Our apartment is on the roof of a 4-story, you know, typical Danish building, ancient. And the roof over my computer, my guitar stuff, is slanted, and there's a slanted window. So it's that Scandinavian natural light thing.
Yeah.
The light just kind of goes by through the day, you know, and the sun, you can watch it on the floor through the day, shift and all that stuff. So when my wife is out with the baby and doing stuff like that, I just sit there, and we don't have a television there. So there's like, I don't have anything to distract myself there. So it's the baby, my wife, going to the store, playing guitar, and that's it, and the day goes fast. So when I play guitar there, it's so calm that if I want to write metal, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't, it's just not really a thing. So the last single that LA Guns put out, it's called Let You Down.
Yeah.
I think it's the best song we've ever written.
Oh, really?
I think that it conveys the mood of the city I live in Denmark. And I think it has touched people in that same way that like Rocket Man could touch somebody, where you're immediately immersed in pure emotion, whether you want to be or not, you know. And then we have another house in Denmark, which is on the West Coast. And at that house, we have a little house, like a little weird, you know, late 1800s, you know, no running water at one point kind of thing. So when we're there with family, I go in there and write and record. And that's where the real dark metal happens.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the wind is constantly blowing outside. It rains like, you know, like I pictured in my Led Zeppelin, you know, fantasy and all this stuff. And that has like a real crazy energy, like, you know, this like a real kind of thing. So atmospherically, those are two examples of not being in LA. When I'm in LA, my riffs are perfect. They're taut. The arrangements are solid, typical LA Guns arrangements, and it's an autopilot thing. But if I write in other places, you know, without any, you know, pretense of like, I'm going here to write a gloomy song, if I just sit down with the guitar from place to place, it's 100% absolutely going to be not the same as I would write somewhere else. There's no doubt about that.
And does time of day matter to you, or are you pretty good with any time of day?
I really like writing at night. You know, I don't have that luxury as much as I used to, just because I fall asleep before 11 p.m. It's just the way it is. But yeah, I mean, left on my own, which I am now, you know, my wife's in Denmark now.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her in 2 months. But my son was here for 2 months, and he stays up later than I do now. And if it gets to midnight, I get guilty. You know, where what I should be doing is letting everything settle down and then going in my studio, which is like the classic kids' dream studio. You know, every gadget and tape machine is in there. And I should just go in there at midnight and stay in there till 5 a.m. That's what I should be doing. That's what I want to be doing. But, you know, or that's what the child in me wants to be doing. But it's probably not as necessary as I'm fantasizing.
Yeah. So Brian, the last time we talked, you mentioned that you have, maybe you're in the room, you had a room with the pictures of all the songwriters around you, and I think you looked at them. So I'm curious, and that was, I think, 2018 that we talked. So, you know, do you still go to that place? I guess, how important is environment to you when it comes to the writing ritual?
I moved since then, so I don't have the pictures down. I have a weird thing about keeping the same pictures. I have a weird thing about old pictures in a new house. Like if you lived in one apartment, whenever you move, you have to completely change everything. You have to like lose the pictures because they're part of some other you. And it's bizarre. I don't know. That's not real, but it's in my head. It's real. So no, now it's like a different thing where I kind of just sit. But, you know, I don't know. I used to write in the van all the time. So I would just like go out in the early days and just like the show would be over and I would go in the van and write because that's where like no one could talk to me. So I didn't want to be bothered. And that was something that I could do. And so I don't have like any kind of place that I need to be. I prefer to sit at a desk and do it just because it's more comfortable. But no, like most of my time is just sitting there staring at words, you know, because like sometimes I would start with the music, but what I'm finding now is I can't trick myself enough with that anymore. So I have to try different things, like writing the words first is something I'm working on now. So I don't know how that's going to work. We'll see. But the place doesn't really matter because I just always I had to do it. I had to get it done. And like when it was such a communal vibe, like back then, like everybody was on top of each other 24 hours a day. So it was just like, you just couldn't have boundary stuff. And I never had the luxury to stretch out. Like I wish I did. I wish I had like a spot. Like even now, the room that I'm in where I write, where my desk is, there's not a door. So like I can hear my kids all day long. And you know, it's just the way it is. And I feel like Ray Davies, like writing the Kinks records on his kitchen table while his kids are running around him, you know? Yeah. But he did it. You got to make it work. I mean, I would love it if one day I could have like a spot outside and just be like, whew, like I'm out later, you know, close the door. But I can't right now. So it's just like, got to make do, really.
Yeah, but I guess that flexibility means you can create almost anywhere, right? I mean, there are people that say that they need to have those certain things. So I think what you're telling me could be an asset, don't you think?
It can be, but sometimes the mood gets the best of you. Sometimes it's just straight up frustrating, and I'm like, shut the fuck up, you know? Like, but like, what are you gonna do? Right. Nothing. So I have to go through that exhausting emotional process too, of like, well, can I not write because I don't have an idea, or can I not write because somebody's screaming every 5 minutes? And then you got to go like through that, and then it's like so it's becoming like sometimes it becomes like a annoying thing where you're like, oh, you know, and you have to have more arguments with yourself to get it done.
Yeah. Now you mentioned something a couple minutes ago, tricking yourself. Can you talk about that a little more? You said something about tricking yourself.
Yeah. What are you saying, Tracii?
Yeah, I got to ask you something, because there's a certain part of your catalog that is really could be perceived as you've been so heartbroken. You know what I mean? You know, like the 21 Days.
Yeah.
And then the other one I freaked out about a couple months ago. They're both on the new album. When you write a song like that and you're putting something into words, and you're sitting just in a room or at a desk, and then usually when you make a video, it is outside, and it is a slow motion feel, like you know, like you. So it's like, it tells me that's where your soul is. You know, when I hear your songs, when I listen to what you're saying, and the way the melody is, always with a minor dip, always with a minor dip, always with a minor dip. I bet that's subconscious, but I just have to ask you, like, you know, when you're in that frame of mind, is that taking you back to a faraway past? Are those emotions that you're still, you know, fighting now? Are they far away back that you can see it clearly and write about it? You know, like, where do those songs come from in your being? You know, like, because I attach immediately when you write songs like that.
Well, thank you. I mean, the thing for me, like, because I've had like these situations where I can't really have an ideal scenario, like I go, it's like when I was a kid, like I was just by myself, like there were no brothers or sisters or anything. So like I spent a lot of time like up here, and I just I go up there, and like I stay up there, and up there is somewhere, I don't know, it's vast. There's stuff. Like sometimes, like I remember being in there, like when I was writing, like say 21 Days or something. Like I remember in my head, I was out in the woods in the snow, like just walking around, and like that's like, but it's not. I don't know. Like I go there because I've sort of had to in order to silence things, and like sometimes it's like myself too. Like a lot of it comes from a different place. Like the things that I don't know, like I have a weird personality, whereas like there's always like some kind of looming thing that's bothering me, that's irritating me and eating at me, and it's like up there somewhere, and it's not anybody around or anything like that, but it's somewhere where like up there, wherever I go to do that stuff, like that lives there too, and like it's bizarre. It's a bizarre like melancholy thing that not melancholy is too generous of a word. It's a weird. It's a weird spot. It's like a weird spot.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, before we get into this next question, that really answers Ben's question, because we were talking about location.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems to me, you're right when he said that, and then you describe your writing scenario, that in your mind, you actually do go to other locations. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sure. And I think people should know that it's okay to go somewhere else and build, you know, this scenario, you know, no matter what it is, you know, and that's inspiration, you know, and it's so hard to define inspiration normally, other than, yeah, I listen to this guy and I get inspired. Right. But, you know, our brain contains way more information than we can access consciously, you know. So, you know, I think that what you just described, to any other songwriter that's watching this, I think it's an important, you know, point that, you know, when I'm feeling this and I want to tell this story that I put together about an emotion that's been fucking with me for 22 years or whatever, I go there. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's okay to go there. Yeah. And you should go there because it's probably the most comfortable place you can be.
It is. But it's one of those things that you find, I think, as a creative person, you know, you, like you were saying in the beginning, we got into this whole thing to get out of this whole thing. And, you know, when I was a kid, it was all about fantasy and imagination. Like when I was a kid listening to music and I would listen to my records, I would be like, you know, like The Who or whatever. I was like, this band's larger than life and they pee on monuments, you know? And like, I was like, cool. You know, and then music sounds like a carnival. And it was like, that can't come from like my daily, like New Jersey backyard of like, you know, apartment buildings and bricks and stuff. Like that's not exciting. So it had to live up here. So I continuously went up there. Plus I like spent a lot of time alone as a kid. So like, that's where I learned about, you know, you can kind of imagine whatever you're not seeing in front of you, you write about it and imagine it. And then you go there and be there.
That's right. I mean, our brain, you know, your brain is the creative side, you know, the heavy side, and you know, and that's what I mean when I talk about your authenticity. You know, when you're telling your story two ways, through the music, through the vocal. You know. I'm really sensitive to, like Gary Moore, for example. Yeah. The guy was such a perfect singer that I almost didn't like hearing him sing. You know, his guitar playing was fantastic enough. I didn't need to have this pure, perfect, linear, so emotional voice. It was an overload, you know. But like The Who, he was an over-the-top guy, you know, and so that makes sense. But the importance of, like, you know, going from song to song, like when you know, some of your stuff, you know, because you're good at choosing rhythms for your music, you know, whether it's a snare roll, you know, rhythm, you know, a Brit pop beat or straight ahead rock, your voice is the one thing that changes to the rhythm of your songs. And I notice that a lot of times in the more upbeat stuff, more aggressive stuff, you really go into this like Rod Stewart thing. Yeah. You know, it's like yes, you know, and I know that's where you go because that's where it's comfortable for you to go, you know. And then, you know, on the more sensitive stuff, you're a completely different character, you know, but it's natural. It's not like, you know, hey, you know, I'm going to do this here and I'm going to do that there. Anyways, I'm just letting you know, I pay attention to what you do.
I appreciate it.
And the songs are just top notch, man.
Thank you.
Top.
What you're talking about reminds me a little bit of what Ernest Hemingway said. Hemingway said he could never write about Paris when he was in Paris. He always had to have distance. He could never write about a place when he was in that place. So, and I think I'm hearing like that's what you guys are talking about. And maybe does that apply not just physically, but emotionally? Like, can you write about anger when you're angry? Can you write about sadness when you're sad? Or do you need that distance?
I don't know.
That's more of a question for Brian, because I don't speak with my voice and my words. You know, so I don't know.
Okay.
It comes out like in the music too, though. Like you can feel, like I remember being like, I think I got, especially on like, okay, so like when you guys did Hollywood Vampires, when that came out, I remember hearing that after already knowing Cocked and Loaded for a long time. So, or not a long time, but like enough time. And then as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, this is different. Like it's coming from, like it's sad, like that, like Crystallized or something like that. That's sad. You know, even a song like It's Over Now, like where it's like, it's kind of, it's like got cool, like jangly thing, but it's like, it's sad. Like there's a sadness to it, but you know that the second the guitar starts, like you don't need, or the beat starts, you don't need any lyrics or anything. And I think that it can come, like right now, I'm learning a lot of like music that's not like, you know, because I was saying, like I was studying like the guitar things, like there's no vocals. And so it's like, but I'm finding myself being moved for the first time by that kind of thing, where I was always the lyric guy. I didn't care about anything to do with, you know, the music. I cared like the mood, but like I wasn't busy with any modes. Videos. Yeah, Root 35th, all that. But
and anybody that doesn't know the term, I always clarify modes. Modes is just the Greek word for moods.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
You know.
But it's like, you know, I think that you can feel it. I don't know though if I have to be in the mood to do it. It's tough to do when I'm in a bad mood. If I'm in a bad mood, I don't want to write. Like I just want to be left alone, you know?
Yeah.
I think Tom Petty said that too. Like he couldn't write if he was in a bad mood. I'm not sure if he said that, but I think he did.
I hate being in a bad mood.
Ugh, worse.
And is that, I guess, Tracii, can you, you know, does that make it difficult to play or to write music when you're in a mood like that?
Whoa, man, you know, yeah, I remember years ago, we were playing at Axis in Boston, and my ex and I were arguing over a payphone, you know, no cell phone, we were arguing. And I hadn't slept the night before because we were arguing like that, and it kept me up. And I finally had fallen asleep on the bus, and somebody came in to wake me up, like literally 15 minutes before we had to go on stage, man. And you know when you're so upset with no sleep to where your body's kind of vibrating and you can't get it together, you know, and I had to go on stage, and somehow after 10 minutes, adrenaline kicks in, you know, and it gets you through. But if you're in that bad mood or emotionally that unstable to where you're angry or overly irritated, you're just not interested. You know what I mean? Like I can say how I feel on the guitar when I'm like that, but nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
You know? All it does is scratch your selfish itch of power and anger and things like that. So at home when I'm mad, I would have to turn that into sadness before I could, you know, I can't just approach the guitar being pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way, man.
I feel that, like turning like something that you're mad about into sadness. I fully back that. I know
Right?
what you're talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to.
So wait,
You can't be like weird. You know, they were saying that like when when Wilco and Billy Bragg were going through all of Woody Guthrie's lyrics to do that record that they did together, like Jeff Tweedy was saying that he found like crazy writing from Woody Guthrie where like some of it was like straight up like I hate you. There was like pornographic stuff, just stuff that was not supposed to ever be released, but it was just Woody writing out like, this is how I feel right now. And like, I hate you and I hope you're dead. Like that kind of thing, which I was like, that might be healthy just to write and never, and then burn after writing,
Well, it's like the breakup letter, you write it to the chick that broke your heart and you write it good and you never send it.
Yeah. That's good.
Therapy.
So,
I love therapy.
Yo, therapy's cool.
So this reminds me, though, I interviewed Jim James from My Morning Jacket, I think last year, and he talked a lot about dispelling the idea of the tortured artist myth. And again, I'm hearing this is a little bit of what you're talking about, but he said, no, let's get rid of this idea that you've got to be a tortured artist to create good art. And he really talked about it as a bigger sweeping issue in the music industry. We talked about it with just mental health in general, but he really was adamant about dispelling that idea that you need to be a tortured artist to create art. So yeah, what do you guys think about that? Tracii, what do you think?
Well, I am a tortured artist. I've dealt with agoraphobia, social anxiety, since I can remember, really. Maybe 10 or 11 years old. There was a period of time I didn't leave the house for a year when I was 27 years old. So to say that it's not present is unfair, because I feel like you just go back to Beethoven and people throughout history. Jimi Hendrix was an anxiety victim. Bob Dylan had anger issues. The singer for Boston. He had
certainly
demons. I think that the combination of experience is a bad experience, are the greatest teachers of, communication. Nobody stares at traffic when it's smooth. You stare at it when it crashes.
Yeah.
It's only interesting when it changes and when it emotionally touches you. I think someone that might say that the tortured artist isn't necessary is because that great artist isn't tortured. He doesn't feel tortured. So in that case, it's not necessary. And I would never say it's necessary.
Yeah.
But I feel that, let's look at Elton John. My God, because of his lifestyle and the way he grew up, and there's Freddie Mercury. Come on, they each tell such a different story, and they're able to reach so deep. Think about it. It's like Elton John doesn't even write 10% of his own lyrics, but the way he delivers them, immersed in torture.
Certainly.
I think, it's definitely like a case, I think, of each individual. I think like any sort of like blanket thing is tough, because it comes from where it comes from, and each person's, gotta be different. We're all different.
Don't you think that each artist's upbringing and experience is what ultimately makes them unique?
Yeah.
And it's like one guy was hit in the back 17 times. The next guy was hit 3 times. The next guy. So everybody's level of negative experience, and you know, I mean, and we're talking in our world. You know, we're talking about in music that's not intended to be pop music that's so damn good it becomes pop music.
Mhm.
That's because so many people are trying to relate to your feeling and your emotion. So even the fellow you were talking to, he might not feel tortured, and but if his music is attaching to people, there's only one other way it could go, and that's you've had such an exciting, happy, carefree life that people attach to your music because they want to feel that way.
Yeah.
You know, I don't fucking want to feel that way. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Do you guys have time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, I gotta bail in a couple minutes.
Okay, so let's end with this then, because and I always end the interviews with this question. But you know, Brian, you know, I've asked this both times we've talked. But the type of reading that you're doing now, who do you like to read? Who are you? I think last time it was Neil Gaiman, and I think you talked about you were going through Great Expectations. You made a laundry list of the classics. So who are you reading now?
Well, right now I'm reading Corbin Reef's book on Chris Cornell. I'm also reading a book called like 10 Reasons Why You Should Delete Your Social Media Account.
We are too.
Yeah, that's a good book.
Me and my wife.
Because it's honestly like social media has done cool things like meeting Tracii, for instance, like, but it's also a nightmare for a personality like me, you know, which might not be like I find myself driving around considering like, did that guy really say that to me? Like, I wonder if that's true about me. Am I a total poser? Like, you know, and then I'm like, what? And then it like affects, like, I'm hanging out with my kids and I'm thinking about something somebody said on Twitter. And I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like what you can handle and whatever. But, you know, that, and then what's the other one that I was doing? There was some other book that was can't find. That's pretty much it right now, those two books.
Yeah. Tracii,
right now.
What's that?
No classics for me right now.
No classics. I know. I forgot who it was the first time, but yeah, I remember the last time it was the classics. Tracii, how about you? Do you get to do a lot of reading? You know, maybe it does that. You know, fiction, nonfiction, rock bios, anything like that.
I like everything. You know, the good thing for me is we have audiobooks now. I have no attention span. You know, I have really short attention span unless I'm creating something. So my wife, she has a master's degree in journalism. She reads everything, and you know, she corrects my grammar. And then I try to speak Danish, and it's a nightmare. So language, reading, input, you know, it's tough for me. But I love current events. I love history. The last we're listening to the audiobook of Disconnect from social media right now, which is really good. And then, you know, I take Danish lessons every day, so I'm reading Danish every day. But as far as fiction versus nonfiction, it doesn't matter. You know, to me, everything's a story, and I'm interested in. I like to learn stuff, you know, so I would say less fantasy, you know, more nonfiction.